worldwide phenomenon, pop culture. You're a pop culture icon, and but are you sick to death of being asked about the X Files? Or are you just at a place now where you're happy to go back in time and think about all the the good times?
I'm happy to talk about it. I think there was definitely a period of time right after it finished that I just kind of couldn't even hear about it anymore.
Yeah.
I couldn't have that conversation for a while. Um, and then there was a certain point, and I remember actually sitting on a plane once, and on the back of the in-flight magazine was an advertisement for a box set of X-Files DVDs. And I looked at this picture of this person, and it was weird. It was like I had to, I kind of went, is that me? Like, what, that has something to do with me, and I can't quite put my finger on what it is, but it was just a really weird moment of warped perspective, and I think once that passed, or since that's passed, I've been, happy to talk about it and reminisce about it and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, because it was obviously an incredible experience. It doesn't happen very often, and it was huge. I mean, I can just recall the fanatic following that the show had. There's probably never been anything like it since. But at that time, speaking of the popularity, we should talk about your awards success. Given that Goldderby, this is what we like to talk about. We're obsessed with awards. Back in the day, you won 2 SAGs, an Emmy, and a Golden Globe. And I think there was one year in particular, I think it was 96 or 7, I think it was 97, where you won all 3 in a row, which very rarely happens. It really is quite an achievement, Gillian. So we always ask this question. We're always fascinated to know what it's actually like when you're in the audience and you're all dressed up and you've got your makeup and your hair and you hear your name being called. And for you got your name called by Helen Mirren at the Emmys. What was that experience like? Can you take us back to that time?
I think I've always had trouble in my life with feeling the importance of the moment, or and I think that certainly had come into play at the time. I don't know how old I was, 28 or maybe 29 or something, and I just started, and we were shooting up in Vancouver, and we were just doing this thing, and then it became this other thing, and I think it was kind of too much for me to fathom or to handle at the time. I didn't even know. I remember feeling like I couldn't smile anymore. Like I couldn't bring myself to smile. Either my face was too tired, or I was so scared and confused, and what does this mean, and should this really matter this much, and all that kind of stuff.
I know.
You go through as as you're growing up, and I think because I had essentially grown up in front of the camera, my perspective on things was just off, and I look back at that time, and there's part of me that wants to walk up to myself and shake myself and say, "Wake up! You're asleep right now. Wake up and feel this. Be proud of this. Show people that you're excited about this, because it's really cool and it doesn't happen all the time."
No.
Like, I didn't know that didn't happen all the time. I didn't know that shows didn't always get picked up. I didn't know that it was a really big deal, to get picked up year after year after year. And I just was so naive about all that stuff that I kind of came across as a zombie.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that. I mean, you looked humble, and that's a really admirable thing. You didn't look like you were totally in love with yourself, and people really admire that. But I mean, I recall it very well because I was just a kid, and watching you win an award off Helen Mirren, I was like, yes, awesome. I love the X-Files, rah rah rah, and you seemed pretty excited at the time. But I can imagine it would be a complete roller coaster. And very hard to understand.
And the Emmy goes to Gillian Anderson.
I feel so honored that you are presenting me with this award, because I have been such a huge fan of yours
for so many years, and I'm more nervous about this right now than I am about getting up here. I need to thank my family, my mom and my dad, and I have a younger brother and sister, Aaron and Zoe, who are so wonderfully normal about this whole celebrity thing. They don't brag. I'm still their big sis, and you know, I want to shake them and say, "Don't you know who I am?" That was a joke.
And especially with Helen Mirren up there, because I'd already been such a fan of hers for such a long time that it was intense.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you know, and speaking of Ms. Mirren, she won the Emmy that you were then nominated for a few years later for Bleak House, and for Elizabeth I. And I'm not saying she didn't deserve it, but a lot of people were really keen on you winning for Lady Deadlock because.
Oh, really?
Oh, totally. And you were nominated for a BAFTA for that as well, and a Golden Globe. It was like Gillian Anderson's back at the Emmys. Wow, and who?
That's weird because I remember sitting there, and I can't remember whether that was the time that I weighed about 600 pounds.
Yeah, you were pregnant. Yeah. Yeah.
I saw pictures of myself in that black.
Yep.
Look at Mew Mew in person. It actually had some form to it, but I think and I've seen pictures and I don't even look like myself. So I'm actually kind of glad that I didn't win and have to go up on the stage, and because that would have been horrifying if I'd been looking back at that. But anyway, I remember thinking, I don't think anybody here has seen Bleak House. I remember when they were saying, when they were announcing it in the room, I thought, I can't tell, and I don't think anybody really knows what this is. And I should have just stayed home in London in my fat suit.
Yeah. Well, I think personally that was the highlight of your career, and I don't know how you feel about Bleak House, but I mean, it's such a classic piece of work.
Well, what was amazing about it is that we didn't really have a rundown of what it was meant to be like. I mean, I don't remember that meeting. I mean, there was one day when some of the cast members met and we kind of talked through some scenes, but what I was so impressed with was how there was such a through line of mood and intensity and quality throughout the whole thing. And obviously that's going to have to do with the director, and it's going to have to do with the cinematographer, but it also has to do with the quality of the adaptation. And the fact that so much of it was left on the page from what Dickens, and it was crafted so well on the page from what Andrew had started with. So that always struck me. And then, you know, I only got to work with like 3 or 4 different actors, and there were so many in that cast. And so what was fantastic was to be able to sit down as a proper audience member and to be able to watch what everybody else was doing. You know, Phil Davis, I mean, good God, he's amazing. I remember being delighted and in awe of everything else that was going on, and yet even though we didn't have any communication at all, we were all in the same thing, miraculously, and that was because of the quality of the writing, first and foremost, and then, you know, the foresight of the directors and the producer, and it had a really good feel to it. You know, I just finished Great Expectations, and I finished it a couple months ago, but I haven't seen any of it yet, and I kind of felt like that had the same feel to it. It felt like it might possibly be blessed in the same way that Bleak House was blessed.
Yeah.
But you can never tell, you know, you can never tell until you actually see it up on the screen, and it's a miracle that anything does get to, one, see the light of day, and 2, is of real quality in so many different areas that they warrant awards, because it's so hard. Totally. So much of it is so hard to congeal all these different things together into something that is, you know, really good.
Well, that's right. And thankfully now you've got Moby Dick with William Hurt, Any Human Heart, with a cast of brilliant English actors. So maybe we're going to see you back on that red carpet. And thankfully, there's no Helen Mirren, I think, this time. So that's you can just breathe a sigh of relief. I think.
No, but there is a Kate Winslet.
There is a Kate. There's always a Kate Winslet, though, isn't that part of the rule? There's always a Kate Winslet. But look, we wish you all the best, Gillian. Thank you so much for your time today, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you for having me.